In here, this is my little souvenir programme. Now, I hope you've took time out to get this. They're only a few quid, and we're going to have a good laugh with this, because there's a thing on the back there, you see, and it's me sitting on a toilet in Clapham Common, bare arse, 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's a lady walking past with a Shih Tzu. But the idea of this is it was to encourage people when they take their dogs to the park to pick up any bloody dog mess, take it home, clean it up, because what happens is kids go in the park and they play in the park, they get dog dirt on their hands, kids rub their faces, if they get it in their eye, they actually lose their bloody eyesight. And this happens all the time. Honestly, you'd be surprised at how many times it happens. So what they said to me is, will you do this advertising campaign? So I said, of course I will, and I did. And so that's our caption. And we want a caption on that, and the winner of the caption will get one of them autobiographies. So, as I say, but there's something unique about that photograph. It's 6 o'clock, beautiful morning, Clapham Common, I'm sitting there with a bare arse in the park, and there's not a Labour MP in sight. Now, isn't that great? No, Fido, I said sit. Just like, where the bloody hell's the air freshener, Barbara? No, not your mother. I said aerosol, not arsehole. You shit, I'll sue. Shih Tzu. Where's Silla's frock when you want to wipe your arse? We have a little card school each and every night, and that's genuinely what the tour is about. The tour is really about the card school, and we just unfortunately have to fill in this couple of hours in between hands. And the rivalry is tremendous. A pound a hand.
Well, you must know the way.
I've just put a pound in.
First time we played, they were playing some stupid game. And Ricky said, sit down, we'll have a game of cards. And so I said to him, I says, if you're going to play cards, play Kaluki.
Where you go?
Duncan says, I'll teach you how to play. There's 2 packs of cards. And totally confused. I've watched so many shows now. I've watched so many hours and hours. I sit down watching them, and I still don't know the rules.
It helps to finance Duncan's lifestyle, because we've never had a gig yet where he hasn't won. And I think that's down to the fact that every time we play, he changes the rules a little bit. If he's losing, he brings out all sorts of crazy rules. But I am learning. I'm only down about $4,000. But once I start winning a couple, he'll probably change the game to snap, because he knows I stutter.
Stutter.
And Les, manager, big Les, he got the hang of it. And so now we play all the while.
15%. That's
I mean, nothing at all. I don't even get 15% on the winnings.
15% of everything across
It cost me a fortune.
Well, the first time they played, said, right, Duncan said, we'll play for money now. Ricky won, and it still cost him money. It cost him £4. Even though Ricky won, he had to give the order. So confusing. Next day, Les rings me up. Get to the theatre early. Ricky wants to play cards. What time? 4 o'clock. Gosh, what time is the show? 8. You know, it's only round the corner for them. I live in...
The bollocking. And as he walked off, he said, look, I'm sorry, Mr. Shankly, I realised I should have kept my legs shut. He said, no, son, not you, your bloody mother. But there you go. But can anyone tell me the difference between a Manchester United fan and a Jehovah's Witness? Well, when a United fan knocks on your door, he tells you to fuck off. When I come out of prison in was it 75 or whatever? Yes, 75. I was blacklisted, and so obviously I couldn't get work, and I tried everything, busking, cleaning bloody windows. But I eventually broke into show business, and I got one line in a play, and it was a theatrical play, and it was a wonderful play. But I was dead nervous, and the lead in the play was a really old Shakespearean actor, really fancy. He'd been all over the world doing Shakespeare, and I was a bit nervous, and so I knocked on his dressing room door, and he said, "Come in," and I said, "Excuse me, sir," I said, I'm so nervous, this is the first time I've been on stage, and I'm not sure what to do." He said, "Oh, don't panic, Ricky." He said, "For God's sake, don't panic, my boy." He said, "All you've got to do is get the stage directions and follow them to the letter." And I said, I can't do that. And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, it says here, enter Ophelia from the rear." I said, "And I haven't been introduced to her." I said, "You can't just go giving her one on a... Like, you can't, can you? You could lend her one, but bloody hell, no." No. But you know, it's lovely. I sort of grew up round the pubs and the clubs, and had a little go on that. And on a Saturday night, you used to get some hecklers in, and it was all in good fun. But it's different when it's on stage. If you get a heckler when you're on stage, it's murder, because actors are not like sort of club comics. They can't ride it and get away with it. They panic a bit. And it reminds me when I was working in a play called... It was called Sweeney Todd the Demon Barber. And you all know the story, because they just made a brand new big multi-million-pound musical out of it, haven't they, with Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. And all it is, it's Sweeney Todd is a barber who works in the East End of London. He gets these young men and women in his barber's chair, cuts their throat, drops them into the cellar, strips them off naked, lies them on a table, cuts them all up, and sells the meat for meat pies all around the West End of London. And it was a Saturday night, the theatre was chocker, but there was a crowd of drunks in, and I knew something was going to bloody happen. But anyway, we got to the part of the play where the lead, who was playing, he was playing Sweeney Todd, was very theatrical, over the top, and he's just killed the young girl. He's dropped her into the cellar. He's stripped all their clothes off, and he's got her lying on a bench on a table, and he's just about to carve her up when he hears a police whistle, or as it was called in them days, the peelers. And he went, "Oh my God," he said, "it's the peelers. What am I going to do? Look at her. She's lying there. What am I going to do?" And one of these drunks shouted out, "Give her one while she's still warm." But you can't do. I've been married twice. My first wife drowned in a wishing well, and I didn't know it worked. I just took a chance. And it doesn't matter what time I go home, going tonight, any night in the week, my wife will be watching the television. She'll be watching them bloody programmes, nip tuck, what is it, Botox, liposuction, and all. I said, look, be grateful for what you've got, because I think you girls get kidded, honest to God, I really think you do. And in America now, they're making bras for 6 and 7-year-old girls. For God's sake, let them grow up. But it reminds me of the two Liverpool girls who were talking, and one says to her mate, "Oh," she said, "do you know what?" She said, "I'm awful bloody unlucky." The mate said, "Why?" She said, "Well, for 2 years I've been saving up to have silicone implants in my bust," she said. "Because look at me," she said, "I'm as flat as a bloody fluke." The mate said, "You're not that bad." She said, "I am." She said, "I am." She said, "It's the only reason the lads have got me in the skiffle group, to use me as a bloody washboard." She said, "I know how flat I am." The mate said, "No." She said, She said, "But I've been saving up. I've got all the money together for these silicone implants." Switches the telly on last night, and there's a programme on from America. A woman who's had the silicone implants, one of them's burst, it's poisoned all the inside. They've had to open it from ear to ear, clear all the poison out. They've saved her life, only just, but she's got a bloody scar now from her belly button to her neck. The mate said, "Are you joking? Silicone implants? They don't do that anymore." She said, What do you mean they don't do that anymore?" She said, "Well, my doctor specialises in bust augmentation." She said, "Oh, what does he do?" He said, "Well, he puts a little nick under each armpit, puts in an inflatable bladder, and you blow them up to whatever size you want them." She said, "Oh, go away." She said, "I'm bloody telling you." She said, "Come and see my doctor." She goes to the doctor. The doctor says, "Yes, I've been doing it for years now." She said, "No side effects, no ill effects." She said, "I've never had a complaint yet." She said, "I'd put a little nick under each armpit." She said, "I insert the inflatable bladder." She said, "You blow them up whatever bloody size you want." She said, "Well, say if you blow them up too big or what, not the same size." She said, "Well, you just release the valve, just let the air out." "Ooh," she said, can you fit me in?" She said, "I've been saving up." He said, "Of course I can." 2 weeks later, there she is standing in front of the bedroom mirror, blowing them up, letting them down, blowing one up on its own, then the other one. "Oh," she said to her mate, she said, "Do you know what?" She said, "I feel made up." She said, "My confidence is sky high since I've had my boobs done. Let's go for a night out. Let's paint the bloody town red." And mate said, where do you want to go? I said, let's go to Runcorn, let's live a bit. Let's live a bit. After they go to Runcorn, they go to a bit of a nightclub, and the girl with the new boobs says to her mate, you go and get a drink in. She said, I'll look after the handbags. So off she goes to the bar, her mate, and she's there, and the other one's having a look for the talent around the room like that. And mate comes back with the drink, and the one with the boobs said, you know what, while you were at the bar, she said, I noticed a fella standing there, she said, about 6'2". She said he had dark wavy hair, a lovely little tan, she said, and he had bloody shoulders on him, like Garth. And mate said, it's funny you should say that, because I heard him talking to his mate, and he said the only girls he really, really fancies are the ones with really, really big boobs. She said, you're bloody joking, you're winding me up. She said, I'm not. She said, I bloody heard him. The only ones he really fancies are the ones with the really massive boobs. Oh, she said, I'll go and have a word with him. So she sidled over and she said, she said, excuse me? Excuse me, mate. She said, but don't I know you? And he said, no, but I think we've got the same doctor. You know, drugs are everywhere, aren't they? And they're a bloody curse. You know, and these drug barons are not satisfied with making a fortune. They'll go and fight other drug barons and take their pitch. And it goes on in every town, in every bloody city in the country. And it's almost the same now with doormen or bouncers, as they used to call them when I was a young man. Bouncers have got a club here and a club there, and they'll fight each other and take over each other's territory. And it's spread now to Glasgow, to Scotland. And it's the ice cream men. You know, these little fellas who drive around in bloody little ice cream vans. It's even gone as far as them. They're killing each other to take over each other's bloody pitch selling ice cream. And there's a fellow walking across Sackey Street and he sees an ice cream van parked skew whiff on the road. And there's one of them police notices around it, you know, the tape, do not pass, this is a crime scene. And there's two policemen standing to the side. This fella goes over to the ice cream cart and has a look in the back, and there's a fella propped up against the wall, dead, but covered from head to his waist in bloody vanilla ice cream. And sticking out of his ears is 2 chocolate logs. And on top of that, there's all raspberry ripples. And on top of that, there's all crushed nuts all over him. And then, on top of that, there's hundreds and thousands all over him. And this fella said to the policeman, excuse me, has he been murdered? And the policeman said, no, we think he topped himself. I love performing in front of local audiences, and obviously because I've never moved out to Liverpool as such, I've always lived here, and my family's here, and my friends are here. And I mean, I seem to know everyone, and everyone thinks they know me, and it's great. And of course, my catchphrase from the royal family, my arse, I hear it 50 to 100 times a day. And people say, well, don't you get fed up? And I said, oh, no, I don't get fed up with it at all. Lorry drivers shouted, bus drivers, couriers, kids going past the schoolyard. It's been tremendous for me. The royal family has done me a great favour, and I love Caroline Aherne and what she's done for me. In the programme, some of the very famous people I've met, I've been very lucky, honest to God, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, I've lost my home. I actually had the bailiffs come to my house once when I was blacklisted and couldn't get away. And the bailiff actually gave me £3. That's bloody true. I lost my little cottage later on, but never mind, that's one. But in here, there's some wonderful people. There's people who I've met and worked with. There's Twiggy there out the royal family. And would you like to know a little secret? We're doing another one for Christmas. Isn't that lovely? Hey! Another Christmas bloody special, that'll do me. The only thing is, what about poor Nana? God help her. She was lovely, and it was wonderful working with old Liz Smith. She was incontinent, you know. I used to have to clean up after her. Oh, no, she was lovely. So we got some famous people. We got Sean Connery, Boris, who's just become the Lord Mayor of London, old Parkinson, Michael Bublé, Arthur Scargill, George Melly. Here's little Mickey Stark there, Bert Kwok. Remember Bert Kwok out of the Pink Panther movies? That was great. There's Bradley Walsh, Tony Kay. Anyone here old enough to remember Tony Kay? The footballer, that Tony good lad. Tom O'Connor, Chris Evans, Charlie Lansbury, a good lad, Charlie, and the Ken Loach, the famous film director, Norman Wisdom. And there's a little photograph of when I was that was the first day of the trial, when I was on trial at Shrewsbury. Look at the police there. 6 building workers on trial for going on strike. The one and only bloody building, the one and only ever official building strike the building trades ever had. And they locked us up. And that's some of the 4,000 police that were on bloody duty. But I'll be telling you a little bit about that later on, because the case is still going on. There's Pelly. The case is still... Listen to this. I got a letter this week from Peter Guilfoyle, the MP. You all know Peter Guilfoyle. And it said, the reason that they won't release my documents under the Freedom of Information Act is that it's a threat to national security. Now, I could understand it if it said a threat to social security. But that's genuine, and for the first time, they actually mentioned the words Special Branch, Secret Service, SIS. What a thing to do to a couple of bloody building workers. 2 years I got, my mate got 3 years to chain, killed him. On his death certificate, it said drug-induced Parkinson's from the drugs they give him in jail. Absolutely terrible. But anyway, there you go. So there's Pelly. You see, you know Pelly does the... He does the erection things now, doesn't he? The advert for the... And see what he's saying to me. How big's yours? See. I've got a tremendous little show with me. We've got Tony Barton, who, as you know, he's a jobbing actor, but he's a good sport. We've got Pauline Daniels, one of the strongest female comedians in the country. And I was so lucky to get the incredible Duncan Norvell. It's like me and my mates are going for a night out. But instead of sitting round a pub table and telling each other anecdotes and stories, we do it on stage, and we just share our laughs with whoever comes along on that particular night. But I've been very, very lucky, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, I've met some wonderful people. I've met millionaires. I've met billionaires. I've been all over the world. I've been everywhere. I've been to Australia. I've been to America. I've been to Canada. I've been to Hong Kong. I've been to... One of the nicest places I went to, I was making a little film, was when I went to Australia. And it was magnificent. And I had a day off. In the middle of the shoot, they gave me half a day off, and they said, we know you're a building worker, Rick, a plasterer, so we know you know a little bit about architecture. Would you like to go and see the Opera House, the Sydney Opera House? Oh, I said, bloody hell, would I? It's absolutely magnificent. There's the Opera House. There's the Sydney Harbour Beach Bridge. There's the beach. There's the Manly Beach. And everyone's so bronzy and they're having a wonderful time. So I was delighted to go into the Opera House. And when I went in, one of the people who was with me said, there's an entertainer here from Liverpool, and he's asked if you'll go into his dressing room and have a word with him. And I said, certainly. I said, it'd be a pleasure, you know, it'd be absolutely a pleasure. So I went in to see him, and we got talking, and he sort of said to me, well, if I make it big, if I make it really big here in Australia, I'm never going back to England because it's a shithole. So I'm bringing him on stage in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. And I am bringing him on stage, whether you like it or not. And I've got to be honest, he's the worst actor I've ever seen in my life. No, he is, honestly. He's a guy who... he started in show business at the bottom and worked his way down. And, but he must enjoy it there because he's been there for such a long time. But people say to me, well, if he's so bad, Rick, why do you have him on the show? And I said, after he's been on, the show can only get better. It can only get better. But do me a favour, I know this sounds corny. When compares are introducing an actor, say, ladies and gentlemen, this fella's before he's won this, he's won that, he's been to Las Vegas, he's done all. This fella's won nothing. He's crap. He gets paid off more times than he's allowed to finish his spot. Honestly, he went on a gig the other week, and they actually booed him off. And I went on and done my spot. And when I came off, they were still booing him. And honestly, they were still bloody booing him. So when I introduce him, and I'm serious here, I'm absolutely serious. When I introduce him, I want you to boo. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, for what it's worth, give a big boo, please, for Tony Barton.
I don't know where he got this intro from. He never told me. And I love it. And we've built up on it, you see. But the audience, so surprised. They must be. They don't, what to do? And they boo. And they really have fun, the audience. So he tells them to boo. I didn't know he was going to do this the first night, you know. It's a son, isn't he? He's a dad.
Hello, England. And hello, wherever we are. God, you're lovely, you are. I've always fancied shagging a bird with glasses. Ooh! Take them off and give them to your mate. Are you on your own? Oh, what a shame. You're lovely, you are. Close your legs, I'm in season for crap. Now look. Ooh. I'll tell you what, I'm still active. 3 times I did it last night. Once, twice, 3 times. Well, there you go. Well, this is it. Good old Brindley Theatre. That's the one. I don't know, I'm not sure. I come from Yorkshire, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. When you're on holiday, you hear that Yorkshire war cry. How fucking much? Yeah, you've got my problem, anorexia. John Prescott. Anorexia nervososis. Love me food. Oh, I love me food, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. You know, before I came tonight, Tate, from Hull, the wife, I mean, God bless you, she wanted to get married so badly, she came down the aisle like a bloody Scud missile. I knew she was coming, but there was bugger all I could do about it. And when she got to the altar, she lifted the veil, the vicar went, said, do you take this woman? I said, I do. He said, I'll ask you again. Yay, lovely. She got that woman trouble, you know what I mean? She don't look like one anymore. You know what she did for me, ladies and gentlemen, before I left? A lovely dinner, roast beef, Yorkshire pudding, because you're going a bit gaga. Getting on a bit. I mean, I love her, but roast beef, Yorkshire pudding, veg. You know what was in the middle of the plate? A sock. I said, what's that? She said, oh, that's what you wanted when you come home from the club last night drunk. That's what you wanted before you went off on the road. I said, no, you daft bat. I said, no, you're going gaga. I said, you can understand. I said, no. When I got home from the club and I'd had a few ales, I said, and I got upstairs and I got into bed and cuddled you, I didn't say cook my sock. What I said was, no Scottish people in, have we? Can't stand them, but can you? The Grand Canyon in America was formed by a Scotsman. He lost a tanner down a rabbit hole years ago. I was in a bar in Glasgow. Fella said, see you, Jimmy, do you like burns? I said, I do. He put his fag out on my neck. Can't mention cigarettes anymore now, can you? Telly, you know what I mean? They've taken it all away, haven't they? No Irish people, have they? I love them. Oh, no, hey. Right, top of the bottom. I was near Dublin the other week, and there was driving a car on the road. This is true, this was the road sign. It said, Bad Ben back there. 1898, an Irishman invented the toilet seat. 1899, an Englishman put a hole in it. Did you? Get worse, you know. No wonder I got after Australia. No, I mean, there's a fella the other day in Dublin, and he's smoking outside the pub, like that. He's having a fag, you see. Yeah, that's right. And the landlord came out, he said, now listen to her. He said, I'm sorry about this. He said, but by law, you've got to be 4 foot or more away from the front door of the pub. He said, I am. He said, no, you're not, you're right on the side. He said, no, I'm from the pub across the road. See, they're not daft, are they, the paddies? They're not daft. No, you got to boo. Don't clap, for Christ's sake. Wonder what's going on. No, that's what it's all about. I've had a varied career, done it all, ladies and gentlemen. Been on everything, survival. Do you know my first job? Opportunity Knocks. Do you remember that? They got the X Factor and all that now, haven't they? Easy, that, isn't it? Bloody Simon. What hard we had it hard. I was on there with 2 Geordies called Milliken and Nesbitt. So I was on there, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you remember me years ago. Opportunity Knocks. I was on there as a double act, because my real name is not Tony Barton, it's Tony Norfolk. Yeah, and I was on there with a fella called Barry Good, and we were called Norfolk and Good. Yeah. Have they got any lap dancing bars here? After the show, I like to just, wind down. You know what they do in them lap dancing bars, don't you? They've got a loading hole, the lap dancing bar. They dance around the pole like that, these girls. Went and put money down the bras and down the knickers. They do. This lad in Hull got a £20 note. He licked it and stuck it on the left buttock. His mother mate got another £20 note, licked it and stuck it on the right buttock. This Jewish lad got a credit card, went zip and took the 40 quid. You got some funny. No police in, have we? No, they'll never own up, you know. We're coming down the M62, I was the other day, and I tell you what, this policeman stopped this fella for speeding. And just as the copper is approaching the driver of the car, the driver's got a dog on the front seat. See, and he's hitting the dog on the nose, you little swine. Ow, ow, go on, you little swine. Ow. The copper said, right, he said. I'm not only having you for speeding, he said, but I'm having you for cruelty to an animal as well. And the driver said, come on, hey, go, officer, give us a break, will you, Lar? I'll speak for the scouts. Give us a break, Lar. He said, hey, if that dog had done to you what it's just done to me, you'd be hitting it on the nose as well. And the driver said, well, all right, then. The copper said, come on, what's it done? The driver said, I'll tell you what it's done, officer, it's just eaten me tax disc. See?
Now, hang on, how many have you got?
It's a queen. £2. Thank you. Just take that one.
See, look.
I wanted the 8 or the jack.
Wade in.
Yeah, you do it that one.
Wade in at one side.
You know what?
Your deal, Rick.
No, it's not mine.
Yeah, we have a little card school each and every night, and that's genuinely what the tour is about. The tour is really about the card school, and we just unfortunately have to fill in this couple of hours in between hands. And the rivalry is tremendous. The rivalry is absolutely tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, this girl needs no introduction. She has her own show here every year. She brings the house down. She's a fabulous actress, comedian, singer. You name it, she can do it. Let's hear it, please, for Miss Pauline Daniel!
Hello, Runcorn. Oh, good evening. Good evening. Lovely to be back here at the Brindley. Everyone all right? Good. Girls, I've just been looking in the mirror. Don't you know when you're getting old? You know when you look in the mirror and your bloody mother's looking back at you? Why does that happen? Why does everything go south for the bloody winter? Oh, you'd love me, Dad. I should have brought him. He stains floors. He doesn't mean to. It's just something that happens now. My mother said she's got it sorted. I said, why? She said, I've got him on Viagra. I said, what? She said, Viagra. I said, he's 84. What do you want to put him on that for? She said, it stops him pissing on his slippers. It's good to remember that, isn't it, lads? Or it's handy if you go sunbathing, you know, on the first day of your holidays and you overdo it a bit, you know, a couple of Viagra, it'll keep the sheets off during the night, won't it? So she stood there and she said to me, Dad, oh, Charlie, look at my arse. It's hanging down behind my knees. Oh, Charlie, would you look at my bloody stomach? It's meet me arse at the front. Oh, Charlie, for Christ's sake, give me a compliment. He said, there's bugger all wrong with your eyesight, love. You can be cruel, lads. I bought a lovely dress for Christmas. I said to my fella, does this frock make me look fat? He said, no, your ass and your belly make you look fat. The frock's lovely. I don't know. Now, I don't know whether you've noticed this, girls, but you know when we wake up of a morning, we open our eyes and then we speak. We say things like, would you like a full English breakfast with toast and marmalade, darling? Doesn't it come out that way? And now, for some reason, you lads, when you wake up of a morning, you open your eyes, but your mouth isn't the first orifice to make a sound, is it? I mean, granted, I understand, you know, you like us to join in, so you shove our heads under the covers and waft. But it's not much fun, lads, and we're fed up. Now, apparently, girls, the older they get, the worse they are. My mother gets a bugle dawn chorus every day. She said to me father, she said, you do realise if you carry on farting like that, you do realise your insides will fall out. He said, don't be so bloody stupid. She said, I'm telling you the truth. He said, I've never heard such rubbish. She said, well, be it on your own head. The other day, she got up early, went downstairs, made herself a cup of tea, went to the fridge to get the milk, spotted this little chicken they were going to have for the dinner. She thought, I'll get the bugger. She took the chicken out of the fridge. She took the giblets out of the chicken. She crept up the stairs. She pulled back the covers. She laid the giblets by the side of me dad. She covered him back up. She crept down the stairs. She had her cup of tea and waited. Half an hour later, there was an almighty scream. My father was running backwards and forwards across the landing. Eventually, she went up. She said, what's the matter with you? He said, Doreen, you were right. She said, right about what? He said, you were right about me insides falling out. Thank Christ you had that Vaseline. I've got them back in now. I'm not good with children. I've got one. Me and her father stayed together purely for her sake. Well, it was because neither of us wanted custody of the bitch, to be honest. I was a terrible mother, you know. I bought one of them twin buggies and told her I'd shot her twin just to keep her on her toes. It worked. I always believed that my daughter should be brought up the same way as I was, so my mother had her for 6 days a week. But I mean, kids today know too much. There's a little girl lives next door to me, and she said to her mother, Mum, what's a penis? Well, her mother was shocked. Oh, dear God, she said, let me think. Well, she said, it's probably the most important part of a man's body. She said, oh, right. She said, well, what's a prick? She said, oh, that's the rest of him. And she said to her mum, for Christmas, can I have Barbie that comes with Action Man? Her mum said, no, love, Barbie comes with Ken. She said, oh, no, she only fakes it with Ken. Where did he get this? Now, as if she isn't bad enough, she's got a brother. Now, this kid has got the face of an angel, but I kid you not, this child has got 3 6s tattooed in the back of his head. And his mother said to me the other week, will you look after our Damien while I do a bit of shopping? I said, bugger off. She said, oh, God. I said, he's horrible. She said, he's all right, he's occupied, he's got a train set. So there's the kid from hell, a train set, and me. And he's like this. Choo. And he pulled the train to the station. He said, right, all those getting off the frigging train, get off the frigging train. All those staying on the frigging train, stay on the frigging train. I said, hey, mouth language up them stairs bed now. 2 hours he was up there. Felt a bit sorry for him, so I went up and untied him. I said, now listen, I promised your mother I'd do a bit of washing for you. You play with that train set, but watch it. And he's like that. Choo. And he pulled the train to the station. He said, right, all those getting off the frigging train, get off the frigging train. All those staying on the frigging train, stay on the frigging train. And if anyone wants to moan about the 2-hour delay, see that bastard in the kitchen. Bloody kids. I think we get our Scouse sense of humour from the water. I think what it is, you see, the Welsh don't like us having the water, so they put something in it and it's made us funny. And unfortunately, that's it. It's in the water. I've gone into this hairdresser's, I've sat down and I am waiting for my stylist to arrive. Well, when she walked in, you'd have swore that she'd walked off the front of Vogue magazine. There wasn't a hair out of place. Her makeup was immaculate. Her nails beautifully manicured. She walked like a model and she walked up behind me and she spoke to the mirror like hairdressers do and she said, hiya! Have you been on your holiday yet? I said, no. I said, I'm going next week. She said, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Italy. Who said I'd been there? It's crap. I said, well, what didn't you like? Says, well, do you know the weather? Well, it poured down, it rained the whole time we were there. And the wine, oh, it tasted like bleeding vinegar. And the food, it was shite. But the biggest rip-off of the lot, Rice, is they stick 48 of you on a great big coach, drive you for 4 hours through the most boring bleeding countryside you've ever seen in your life. Wall to wall, sodden grapes. Just to take you to the Vatican to see the Pope. Well, I've seen the Pope on the telly. He looks about 5'9", 5'10". It's a load of crap. He's a little fart on a balcony like that. And he doesn't even speak English. It's crap. It's a rip-off. You'll hate it. I said, thank you, Judith Chalmers. Off I went on my holiday, had a great time. When I got back, couldn't wait to go and have my hair trimmed. Went straight back, asked for the same stylist, Lizette. In she came, looking as radiant as ever. She said, who are you? Have you been on your holiday, I said, I've just come back. She said, oh, yeah, you went to Italy, didn't you? Was a crap, like I said. I said, it was marvellous. She said, oh, go away. What was the weather like? I said the weather was gorgeous, the sun shone the whole time. She said, oh, go away. She said, well, what about the wine? I said, Tuscany's one of the finest wine regions in the world. The Chianti in particular was, bellissimo. She said, oh, go away. She said, well, what about the food? I said it was a culinary delight. Tortellini, tagliatelle, cannelloni, lasagna, spaghetti bolognese, you name it. I ate it gorgeous. She said, oh, go away. She said, well, did you go and see the Pope? I said, go and see the Pope. Go and see the Pope. It was the most moving experience of my life. I was there, St. Peter's Square, Sunday morning. Thousands upon thousands of people all gathered to see this one man. One man loved and adored by millions. He came out onto the balcony. He delivered his Sunday morning blessing. He came down from the balcony. He got into the Pope-mobile. He drove through the crowds. He stopped. He got out and he spoke to me. She said, don't go away! What did he say? I said, he said, who the fucking hell cuts your hair?
Oh, I say.
No, the tour's been going very, very well. And apparently the last day or two we were in, we must be going back there near Christmas time, because I heard the manager saying to his assistant, it'll be a cold fucking day before they come back.
You said that about me.
Is it my go?
I need a miracle.
Yes!
No. How many you got?
11, he's got 11.
He's got 2s or 3 or 4.
6.
I need
Thank you. Thank you. I made up, that's actually recorded on film for
Duncan's
posterity.
been beat.
Duncan's been whacked out in the first round. Thank you.
I knew you got loads of
What can we sing to? We keep a well-guarded bee. At my age now, if I was still doing the trade I was taught to do, I'm a City and Guilds plasterer. I'd be too old, I couldn't do it, but I can come out here and enjoy myself with these wonderful people and meet people like yourself. But it all happened because I bunked into show business, I bunked into acting. So I want to tell you just a couple of quick little stories. But first of all, I have a general knowledge question, and this is for the girls, and I don't want the lads to spoil it. I know the lads will know the answer. This is just for the girls, because I'm not being disrespectful, girls, but looking around the audience, I think a few of you have been round the block a few times. No, I think you're right. I'm not being rude. Now, there's not a lot of grass around Runcorn, but what there is has been flattened a few times, I'm telling you. And the question is this, and it's a very simple question, and don't spoil it, lads. The question is this, listen, girls, what's the difference between something that's erotic and something that's kinky? Now, I asked that question the other night at a big posh do, and this woman, I said, what's the difference between something that's erotic and something that's kinky? And this woman said, £35. I said, no. So let me just have a little look, see. Anything there at all? Okay, I'm going to tell you, this is it. This is the difference. If your husband or your boyfriend gets a feather, and with this feather, he strokes you all over your naked body, in all them intimate parts, that's erotic. Now, if he uses the full chicken, then that... Let me tell you this. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when cousins marry. I want to tell you two little stories.
Ricky's a more storyteller, you know. He's got some great stories, obviously, and he's had a wonderful life, and he still is, you know. So he's developed a knack of telling a lot of stories, and the way he does it is completely different.
I'm a cheeky so-and-so, and when I was skint, and I started getting a bit of extra work, and I would get booked from Manchester, or I would get booked from Leeds, and I thought, hang on, there's no casting agency in Liverpool. And I was skint, I was living in North Wales at the time, in a little village called Coedpoeth. And so what I done, I borrowed £400 off a lad called Colin Walker, and got a little office in Camden Street off London Road in Liverpool. And the rent was £6 a week. And the £6 was the rent, the rates, the heating, the gas, the water, so you can imagine what it was like. And I was skint, it was on the bones of my arse, and I make no bones about it, we've all been there. I've been lucky enough to get out of it, but I was there. So I couldn't afford to go home every night, so I used to go to work on a Monday morning, literally live in the office till Friday night, and then get the train back to Wrexham. And have a night to sleep, I used to pull the 6-foot filing cabinet down on the floor, take a blanket out and a pillow and keep there. And as soon as you put the lights out, the floor would be bloody alive with cockroaches and rats. But that was the score, that's the way it was. And for 6 weeks after I opened the agency, the phone never rang. I was just about to give up, then it rang, and then it rang, and it became probably one of the biggest casting agencies in the north of England. And it was called ART Casting. And I was very fortunate. I'd done all the small parts and all the extras for Alan Bleasdale's Boys from the Black Stuff. But there was a fabulous comic, and I don't know whether you've ever seen him around here in Liverpool, a man called Jackie Hamilton. Did anyone ever see him? Wasn't he wonderful? Wasn't he wonderful? He went to a club once, you know, Jackie, and he got treated terrible by the bloody staff. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, if anyone in the club for the first time, he said, and you don't know where the facilities are, he said, the gents' toilet over there has got a picture of a penis on the door. He said, and the ladies has got a photograph of the committee. But during the miners' strike, I got a phone call from Yorkshire TV, and they said, Rick, we want 300 men only to come to Yorkshire and to play British soldiers who've been captured by the Germans. And it was for a film called Jenny's War, which starred Diane Cannon, the American actress. And so I sent all these lads, and amongst them was Jackie Hamilton. Now, in them days, you had to be in equity to be an extra, of, you know, and a lot of rivalry in show business. Like if you're an extra, then you can become an extra with special skills. If you can ride a motorbike or ride a horse, then you get more money. If you say a line, then you get a different fee. If you say a bigger line, so there's all that, you know. So anyway, the lads are there during the strike, when the miners were in struggle, and they were getting into coaches, charabangs as we used to bloody call them in them days, outside my office at 6 o'clock in the morning, and drive up the motorway to Leeds to do this movie. And obviously every morning they would get stopped by the police, who would search the coaches to make sure they weren't going to support the miners, so that they weren't like secondary pickets. So anyway, they got there and they're doing this. They've all got their army uniforms on and they're doing the job, and the weather was horrendous. It was raining, it was snowing, it was hailstone, and it was all that. But you could always tell where Jackie Hamilton was, because there'd be a crowd around him and everyone would be laughing and joking. And he was a wonderful, wonderful character. And for the whole of this shoot, for the 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it took, you could always tell where Jackie was, because everyone was lively and having a great time. So on the next to last day, the first assistant director got everyone together and he said, now listen, chaps, he said, tomorrow, he said, I only want a dozen extras. He said, because we'll be filming the final scene of the movie. He said, so I only want 12 of you. He said, and your money will probably go. He said, I'm going to do all close-ups of your faces. He said, and one or two of you may even get a word or a line to say. So your money will go from £40 for the day to anything up to £400 for the day. So all of that, bloody hell, I hope he picks me. I hope he picks me. So he went, I'll have you. And he came to Jackie Hamilton and he went, you, and he missed Jackie out. You seen everyone said, bloody hell, he never picked Jackie. So we went over to Jackie. He said, look, Jackie, I'm awful sorry about this. He said, I know how you've kept everyone entertained. He said, you've been absolutely bloody marvellous. He said, we've seen what you've done. You've kept everyone's spirits up. He said, but look, he said, this is the final scene of the movie. And you're all supposed to be in this prisoner of war camp. He said, so I'm picking the skinniest fellas, those who are hunched up, little bits of bloody want to shave, and the skinny and scrawny. He said, but look at you, Jackie. He said, you've got a big red face. You've got a boozer's nose. He said, and you even smell of whiskey. And Jackie said, I know. I only got captured yesterday. What a wonderful ad-lib. What a wonderful ad-lib. And I don't know whether else, because I know some of you people here are club goers, and I don't know whether you remember an act called, it was called Lee Brennan and Dawn. Lee Brennan was a big 6-foot lad, a country and western singer, played the guitar, and his wife Dawn was about 30 years older than him, and she used to sit behind him on the drums and play the drums. And God love her, she was terrified of losing him to all these young girls in the game, that she used to wear the shortest, tightest bloody hot pants that you could ever imagine, and she used to put her lipstick on, and when she looked as though she'd been drinking Ribena out the bottle, and like bloody everywhere. And anyway, and she had a drink problem, and it was a shame, because in the end she became an alcoholic. And I got a call off the BBC, and they said, Rick, we're doing a thing called Dombey and Son, and we're going to shoot it on the Albert Dock in London, in Liverpool, because it looks more like London in the Victorian times than London does today. So we're going to shoot it there, but we're going to shoot it at 6 o'clock in the morning, because when it gets shown on the screen, it'll look at 6 o'clock in the night. He said, but the reason we're doing this at 6 o'clock in the morning is that there's no traffic about, there's no ships on the river, there's no buses, there's no trams. So he said, but we need everyone on the Albert Dock for 5 o'clock, ready to start shooting, filming at 6. I said, okay. So I used to go down first and tick everyone off. The only one missing was bloody Dawn Brennan, you know, and I thought, bloody hell. So at 10 to 6, the first assistant director said, is everyone ready? So I said, yeah, everyone's ready. So there's the girls. The girls had crinolines on and bustles and shawls and lovely flowery hats, and the lads had frock coat and tails and stovepipe hats and walking sticks with silver tops on. And it looked absolutely fantastic. And there, on the cobblestones, the BBC had brought an imitation gas lamp, and it was magnificent. You couldn't tell the difference between that gas lamp and the real McCoy. And it even had a light burning, and it's exactly like the old-fashioned Victorian gas lamps. It was brilliant. And he said, okay, everyone, turn over, we're ready to shoot. And just as he said that, we heard, hooey, hooey! And Dawn comes flying across the bloody Albert Dock, still half pissed from the night before. These bloody hot pants on her. 6 o'clock in the morning, high heels. He looked like a right bloody trollop. But anyway, there she was, God love her. And he said to me, send her home. The director said, send her home. And I said, look, do us a favour. I said, it's not 6 o'clock yet. I said, she's great. I said, they're having a rough time in, her husband, I know them, they're friends of mine. Please don't send her home. And he went, got a couple of minutes. He said, sit her there. He said, sit her there. He said, wardrobe, put a shawl on her and on a hat. He said, makeup, put some rouge on her cheeks. He said, props, put a big basket of flowers at the side of her. She can be a flower seller. So anyway, 2 minutes later, we've got her sat there. It's still not 6 o'clock. And he shouts, action! So the girls are walking along and they're curtsying, and the lads are tipping the bowlers and their hats and one thing and another. And the next thing is, the bloody wind comes across the River Mersey and blows the gas lamp right into Dawn Brennan's crutch. So she's rolling all over the bloody Albert, grabbing hold of her crutch. And the director went, oh my God! And he said to Jerry Devine, didn't you see the gas lamp falling? Jerry said, of course I did. He said, well, why didn't you say something? Jerry said, I haven't got a talking part. This is a true story. Now listen to this. It's now 6:05. She's still rolling on the floor, grabbing her crutch. There's an American Japanese there taking bloody photographs. And he's photographing it. And he said to Mickey Finn, "Say, pal, what's the name of this programme?" Do you know what Mickey Finn said? "Fanny by Gaslight." They're true stories. They're true stories. This is a true story. I was at a function in Camel Airs. Camel Airs, that used to be the big shipbuilding place. And they've got a social club which is still going. And I was there on a Sunday afternoon watching a charity show. And there was 2 old ladies sitting behind me and my wife and my company. And they had shawls on and bonnets. Real old-fashioned ladies. Must be in their 80s. And during the show, there was an interval in the middle, and there was free curry for anyone who wanted curry, and free scouse for anybody who wanted a bowl of scouse. And these 2 old ladies got up, and they got a bowl of scouse each, and they sat down. And I'll never forget the ad-lib this one come out with. She went, and she said to her mate, "These potatoes are harder than the Cray twins." And her mate said, "Hard? They're that tough they should be on the door." 2 80-year-old women, I thought, that's incredible. In the programme, there's some famous people. I'd just like to tell you 1 or 2 little stories about them, because as I say, Pauline comes on and tells gags. I like the little stories. And one's about Norman Wisdom, and I love Norman, do you? And poor old Norman's in a bloody home now, isn't he? Kids have lashed him in a home. All them millions of pounds and couldn't get him 24-hour care, but there you are. But Norman was telling me, I didn't know this, but I met him a few times, and he's lovely, absolutely lovely man. And he was telling me that he was the Queen Mother's favourite comic. And he used to entertain the royal family, just the actual members of the royal family, 10 and 15 of them, 3 or 4 times a year. It would either be in Buckingham Palace or Balmoral or St James's. And he would go, so he obviously got to know them on first name terms. And he said when he got his invitation to receive his knighthood, he said he was over the bloody moon. So he travelled down to London with his top hat and all the gear on. And he said he went into the reception room, and doing the meet and greet was Prince Philip, what you obviously knew. And he said there was hundreds of people there in the reception. And he said, but when Prince Philip spotted me, he was as glad to see me as I was to see him. So he made a beeline for me. He said, "Oh, Norman," he said, "lovely to see you here." He said, "This is well deserved." Norman said to Prince Philip, he said, "It's the greatest, happiest day of my life." He said, "I'm so proud to be receiving a knighthood." And Prince Philip said, "No," he said, "you've deserved it. You've deserved it for many, many years." He said, and as I was talking to him, Rick, I heard, and he said, I said to Prince Philip, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, that'll be the Queen." And Norman said, "Bloody hell, she can't half play that trumpet, can't she?" But isn't that lovely? And true stories. I love the true ones. And Tom O'Connor was telling me, you know, Tom's very prim and proper, you know that, don't you? Tom, because he used to be a school teacher, didn't he? He used to teach maths and music, or as he called it, sums and drums. And he was telling me there's a very famous hotel in Liverpool, which I can't mention or I'll be bloody sued. But this hotel is quite well famous, but it's got a great big reception room, but it's got no stage. So when they have a big function, they put a portable stage up. But the artist has to stand in the kitchen, the actual kitchen, and look through a little glass panel in the door and wait for his cue off the compere. And while he's in the kitchen, the chefs and the cooks are actually cooking all the bloody meals. There's chips being fried and sausages being cooked and all the rest of it. So he said, I was standing in the kitchen, Rick, he said, looking through the door, waiting for me cue. He said, and I couldn't believe it. He said, I looked round. He said, and there's the head chef coming walking towards me, he said, and he had a cigarette in his mouth with about 4 inches of ash on in the bloody kitchen, you know. So he said, all right, Tom. So he said, yeah, all right, chef. He said, and what he done next? He said, bloody hell, I couldn't believe it. He said, there was a mop bucket about 4 foot away from me. He said, and he took his nudger out and started peeing in the mop buckets in the kitchen. And he seen me looking and he went, oh, wait, Tom, do us a favour. Keep your eye out for the manager. He goes mad if he catches you smoking. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a grandson who I absolutely idolise. I love him. I can't wait for each day to come to go and see him. And I spoil him. Unashamedly, I spoil him. And the thing is, I spend more times with him than I spent with my own kids when they were growing up, because obviously you're out working and providing for them. But I went round this morning about 8:15. He was sitting at the table and he was crying. And I said, his name's Louis. I said, what's the matter, Louis? And he went, he said, I don't want to go to school, Grandad. I don't want to go to school. I said, no, you'll be all right. Come on. He said, no, I don't want to go. I said, why don't you want to go? He said, because none of the kids like me. I said, they do, of course they do. I said, you've got to go to school. He said, why have I got to go? And I said, because you're the headmaster. You've got to go. I used to do the rough clubs in Liverpool. I've done clubs with lads where other people wouldn't go in, they wouldn't go near them. I've worked in clubs in Liverpool. I mean, some of the stories are in the book. I've worked in clubs when people have come in with shotguns. I've worked in a pub called the Bow and Arrow when a guy called Christy McMullen pulled a gun on me. I was telling a joke about the Pope, and Christy obviously was a Catholic, and he said, don't be doing that. I said, I'll behave yourself, Christy, and I carried on with the joke. And he said to his wife, give me your handbag, and she handed him the handbag, and he took a gun out, a revolver. And I just said to the lads, and one of the lads who was in the band at the time was Tony Scoggins, who I'm going to be talking about later on. Tony played Matty in Brookside, and we've been great mates. And as I say, we were in the Colombo Club, and two guys come in with shotguns and fired them. And there's a story in my autobiography about that. I want to tell you a true story about, for those of you who are old enough to remember, in the very, very early days of Brookside, there was a character in it called Matty. Do you remember him? Yeah. Matty, he was played by a local lad called Tony Scoggins, who's been a friend of mine for 40 odd years. And Tony played Matty in the thing. Now, Tony wasn't that enamoured with show business. He was good at it, but he's a great musician. He played around the time. But his heart and soul was in doing community work. In fact, he became an Knowsley councillor, as did his wife years and years later. But what he'd done, he had a workshop in Vauxhall Road in Liverpool. And what he used to do, they used to get these prisoners on day release who'd come and work with him. And he would teach them upholstering and how to do French polishing and all that sort of stuff. And he was telling me a story once, I found it absolutely fascinating. He said he had this young guy, he was only in his early 20s, and this kid had spent most of his life in Borstal and approved school and he said he was in jail now. He said he was in jail for something quite serious, but they used to let him out on these couple of days, and then of an evening time, he'd have to go back to jail and all like that. And he said he started missing coming to the workshop. He said, so I pulled him. I said, what's your game? You know, you're doing well here. He said, I can leave you to do anything. He said, you're giving me no hassle. He said, why? What's wrong with you? He said, oh, you'd be like this. His name's Tony Scoggins, my mate. He said, you'd be like this, Mr. Scoggins, if your father treated you the way I get bloody treated. So he said, how do you mean anyway? The kid went on to say how his father, he had no home life, no nothing. So Tony said, unknown to the kid, he said, I got his address. He said, I'm going to go one night. He said, I'm going to go to that lad's house and talk to his father and see what the bloody score is. So anyway, the kid comes into work the next day, does his little bit, goes back to the prison for the night, gets locked up. So Tony gets the address. It was in Bootle somewhere. Goes to Bootle. He said, I got to the street, he said, and my bloody heart sank. He said, it was like the middle of Beirut. He said, it was bloody terrible. He said, I got the number, whatever it was, number 33 or number 35. And he said, I got there. He said, I got to the bloody path. He said, oh. He said, the path was littered in bloody beer cans and bloody chip paper. He said, the garden hadn't been cut, a little garden, only a little porch. He hadn't been cut for bloody 10 years, he said. There was newspapers up at the window. He said, the front door, all the bloody paint was coming off the front doors. He said, but worst of all, he said, there was a bloody big Alsatian, the ugliest bloody Alsatian I've ever seen in my life, sitting on the doorstep. He said, its bloody fur was all matted and its eye was watering and half its bloody ear was missing. He said, and as I got onto the path, he said, it growled at me, you know. So Tony thought, I'd plug it. He said, I've come this far. He said, so I walked up to the bloody door with trepidation. He said, I knocked on the door. He said, after about 2 or 3 minutes, he said, a couple of bloody bolts unlocked. He said, and the door opened. He said, there's a fella standing there. No, he hadn't been shaved. A bloody ciggy in his mouth with all sorts of ash on it. A bloody owl vest on, string vest. He said, could have been me. He said, what do you bloody want? So Tony Scoggins said, I've come to see you about your lad. He said, why, what's he bloody done now? He said, never mind what's he done now, you done. So he said, we had an argument on the step for about 5 minutes. He said, but in the end, the fella said, well, you better bloody come in then, hadn't you? So he said, the fella turned around and walked into the living room. He said, the dog got up and followed him in. And he said, I followed him in, shut the door behind me. He said, the fella sat at the table. He said, the dog lay down. He said, no carpets, no lino on the floorboard. He said, the dog just plonked itself in front of the fire. He said, and I looked around, he said, my bloody heart sank further, he said, it was bloody awful. He said, there was chip papers there. He said, owl stale bread going green mouldy on the table, there beer cans everywhere, and cigarettes, ashes full. So he said, anyway, he said, I started talking to this fella about your lad. He said, now listen, he said, your lad's got plenty of talent, he said. He said, and I can understand why he's in all sorts of trouble if this is the way you treat him and this is the way he lives. He said, anyway, he said, after about an hour, He said he was beginning to come round. He said, and as he's beginning to come round, he said, the dog just stood up where it was in front of the fire and shit on the floorboards. He said, and the fella never batted an eyelid. The fella never batted an eyelid. He said, and I just looked at him, and he said, the fella never said nothing. So he said, after another half an hour, he said, the fella said, well, okay, he said, I'll treat me son a lot better, he said, and Tony said, well, you better add. He said, because I'll be coming back here in 3 or 4 weeks' time to see you, to make sure you do. And the fella said, okay, you can come back in 3 or 4 weeks, but when you come next time, don't bring your bloody dog with you. Don't bring your bloody dog with you. Isn't that terrible? Bloody hell. Oh.
Well, I'm £2 down here at the moment. So that means if I count me free, I've got another 3 hands left. So,
You're lucky. That's the agent, manager, whatever you want to call him.
Shyster.
Shyster.
Rip off merchants, yes.
No, there's no
Now,
need
come
for
on,
that.
there's no need for that.
I've just won £2.
Hello?
I'm going to pay myself 15% out of that.
I know.
Very easy.
First club he ever booked me at, I turned up and they said, we want 4 spots. I said, what do you think I am, a welder?
We've got a young man coming on stage now, ladies and gentlemen, and you can forget Larry Grayson. You can forget Graham Norton. In fact, Graham Norton, compared to this fella, Graham Norton is like an SAS man. This fella's the original camp comic. He's as camp as a row of tents. He's absolutely amazing, but he's been a wonderful, wonderful entertainer. Now, I can genuinely say that this guy has performed on the Royal Command Performance. He has worked on the QE2 and the Queen Mary. He was one of the top entertainers, biggest earners in the country. He's done the strip, he's done a season in Las Vegas, and tonight he's ended up in this shithole. But ladies and gentlemen, please, don't hold it against him. This fella's a showstopper. You're gonna love him. Come on! Give a welcome to the one and only Mr. Duncan Norfolk!
My catchphrase actually probably came about when I was in Scotland. I know I was in Scotland when I first actually said it.
Chase me, go on. Oh, you bugger, I thought you were coming.
I was doing a club, a Celtic ex-servicemen's club. And I can remember coming on and drinking somebody's beer. And he like stood up and I thought, Christ, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. So I just like tapped him and I said, go on, chase me. And he did run after me, but luckily I was quick, you know, like lightning, and gone. And everybody was in an uproar laughing. And when I come back on, he'd sat down, he'd calmed down, and he was fine. So I thought, well, yeah, it's quite funny, this. So I did a couple of gags, and I looked at him and said, do you want to chase me now? And he'd look at me, you know, and I'd kind of go, whoa. But every time I said chase me, he got a laugh.
Look at all the ladies. Hello. What a wasted journey you've had. Just looking around, see where we are. I'll just have a drink, my voice is getting deep. For the first time I had sex, I was ever so nervous. I was on my own. And my sister, she married a funny fella. She didn't know it till the wedding night. Took all her clothes off and jumped into bed. He took all his off, put hers on and pissed off. I found him. In a minute, stop looking at me. You can watch it at Christmas as long as you want. Is that your girlfriend? Is that your girlfriend? Your wife? Oh, just wondered. Best to find out now, love, isn't it? I bet you didn't think he could skip, did you? I knew he could. Just a hunch. I've had a funny day, though. I've been to the doctor's today. He's funny, my doctor. He likes you to hold him and then cough. I said to him, every time I touch myself there, it hurts. And I said, every time I touch myself there, it hurts. And I said, every time I touch myself there, it hurts. He said, Duncan, take your shirt off. I took my shirt off. He says, does it hurt if I touch you there? I said, no. He says, does it hurt if I touch you there? I said, no. He says, does it hurt if I touch you there? I said, no. He says, you broke your finger. I just love silly jokes, I'm sorry. Fella walks in the library, he says, you got any books on suicide? The woman says, yeah, but they never bring them back. You know, I just come back from India. That was exciting. You get killed by a tiger out there. Or a salad. Last week I went to Wales with Ricky on this show. And I went to Cardiff. We were at St David's Hall. And I got stopped by the police when I was driving back home. I thought I'd get out of the car and walk towards him for a change. He looked at me, he says, you're staggering. I says, you're not bad yourself. He said, you were doing 70 miles an hour in a 40-mile limit. He said, what would you have done if Mr. Fogg had come down? I said, I'd have put my foot on Mr. Brake. He says, I'll ask you again. I said, what would you do if mist or fog came down? Last night, they didn't get that one. And where else did I go? Oh, I went to Eastbourne. That was good. I went to Eastbourne. You ever been there? Yeah. Don't fall over there. There's nobody strong enough to pick you up. All the shop windows are bifocal. They are old. There's a shop in the middle of Eastbourne. It's called Next. It's an undertaker's. And I was stood in the bush shelter and this old lady come up to me and she says, I'm 93. I thought, why get me involved? She says, I've been married 3 times and I'm still a virgin. I said, how come? She says, my first husband were an optician. All he ever did was look at it. She said, my second husband was a psychiatrist. All he ever did was talk to it. She said, my third husband was a stamp collector. I miss him.
Duncan Norvell is a one-off. That's his own act. That hasn't been stolen from anyone, because we all steal or borrow. We borrow other people's gags and little laugh lines and stuff like that. But his act is unique. His act is unique, and he's got it to perfection.
I'm going to take you out into the West with some film stars. When I say film stars, the greats, because when I was a young lad, I used to love watching all the great actors on television. And here's just a few of them. When I say the greats, John Wayne, James Stewart, Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster, and anybody else who might pop along. If I put them in a gunfight and put them here tonight, this is what you'll probably see. They all sound the same, though. Let me know when you want to skip. Have you got some Western music, please? I'm not ready yet. I've not got off my horse yet. I usually do that and then you stop the music, but it doesn't matter. I'll tell you the first one, it's John Wayne. And the second one. I've just got to look hard. I'm getting harder. I didn't mean to frighten you. You never know. Yeah. It's hard doing the voice of a man. If there's gonna be a gunfight, then maybe James Stewart could be here. Are you there, James? Oh. That's all to do with him. Oh, now just hang on. I guess that, maybe if there is a gunfight, then maybe Kirk Douglas could be here. Are you there, Kirk? I forgot him. Let me do it to myself. I sounded like George Michael, didn't I? Are you there, Kirk? Shit, that's Deputy Dog. Okay then, Muskie. I've got him. He won't come if you keep laughing. I've heard that before. Are you there, Kirk? Are you there, Kirk? Yay. That was his horse. He's not here yet. He ain't gonna join him, man. He got a gun. Maybe Burt Lancaster will. Hiya there, Burt. I want to tell you something. When you go for your gun, you better drink good. Because I'm going to blow your head right off your shoulders. Sylvester Stallone, this'll kill you. Let me get the face.
You know, I guess they don't have a photo with it.
I actually met him at Ken Dodd's 80th birthday party, and he done 5 minutes impromptu and stole the show, and I thought, I said, are you interested in having a little go at this? And it's turned out it's tremendous. He steals the show every night. He's amazing. But no, if nothing else, I want you to go home tonight and say, I've talked to that Jim Roy last night, and he's told me a special joke just for you. If you've got kids or grandkids, tell them this. It's a lovely little kids gag. And it's about a little blow-up boy, and his blow-up mum, his blow-up dad. And he lives in a blow-up house, and every morning he goes to the blow-up school, and he gets taught by the blow-up headmaster. And he got up this morning and said, "Are you blow-up, mum?" She said, "Hello, blow-up boy." He said, "Are you blow-up, dad?" He said, "Hello, blow-up boy." And he went to the blow-up school. He said, "Good morning, blow-up headmaster." He said, "Good morning, blow-up boy." But you know, the next morning when he got up, he was in a terrible bloody temper, and he got his mother's needle, he stuck it in his blow-up mother. He run in the kitchen, he stuck it in his blow-up father. He run to the blow-up school, stuck it in the blow-up school. Of course, he got collared by the blow-up headmaster, who had no option but to send for the blow-up policeman, who sat the blow-up boy down and said, "Blow-up boy, what's going on? What's going on? You've done well in all your exams, and look what you've done. You've let your mother down. You've let your father down. But worst of all, you've let the bloody school down."
He looked daft in a suit. As you see him, that's how you want him to be. I mean, people come here and they say, like, is he going to be Jim Roy? Is he going to sit in an armchair? You know, but he stands up, he does it, and you know, I think if he went on in a suit, they'd think, God, he's a bit over the top. You know, doled up too much.
I know people here, there's some people my age, I know there's a lot of youngsters here, and you won't remember in the dark days of the war, and we were getting absolutely flattened. And 1944, we were getting absolutely murdered by the German U-boats that were sinking all our ships in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. And they got that bloody cocky, the Germans, they sent their biggest battleship, the Bismarck, up the English Channel in the middle of the night to sink our ship in. And I want you to imagine the fellow on the lookout, the German lookout on the Bismarck. He said, Capitan, Capitan, a light, 2 miles ahead, Capitan. The captain comes up and he said, megaphone, this is the captain of the Bismarck. Pull over, or I will sink you. Piss off. This is the captain of the Bismarck. This is your second warning. Heave to, or I will sink you. Is there something wrong with your ears? I told you to piss off. This is the captain of the Bismarck, and I am getting pissed off. In 10 seconds, I am going to load the torpedoes. Do what you like. I'm a lighthouse.
What I love about Ricky is what you see is what you get. There is no side to him. You know, you see him playing Jim Royal, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. It's tough if he does. But, I mean, he's not that far removed from Jim Royal.
Tony, have you got a clock?
Yeah, yeah.
Granville.
Granville.
Gotta fetch a clock.
But you know what? I'm probably the luckiest guy in the world, you know, ladies and gentlemen, because in the end of October, I went to the doctors for cream for my arm. I have a thing called Parigo, which is just like a form of eczema. But Rita was with me, my wife, you know, and well, she's just sold all her encyclopedias because, well, she knows every bloody thing, doesn't she? And she, when I was in there, he was making a prescription out for the cream, and she said, Doctor, she said, Rick's been a little bit chesty lately, and he said, okay, he said, I won't examine him. Yeah, I'll go to the Wellman clinic and have a bit of an X-ray and all that. Anyway, they phoned the house the next day. Said, look, you better get in. There's problems inside. And cut the story short, what they said to me is, I had to go to the Royal, and he said, listen, you're going to need some stents. And, you know, I didn't have a clue what stents were. He said, what it is? He said, they're like these little tubes. He said, and we make an incision in your wrist. We push the tubes up round into the area of your heart. They go inside inside the arteries, and they widen them and they expand them. And anyway, so I went in to have these stents done, and halfway through, you're awake while they're doing this. And while this was happening, he stopped the operation and he said, look, it's too bad that they're not going in and one thing. You'll have to come back in a fortnight. You're going to have 4-way bypass open heart surgery. So I said, bloody hell, okay. I'd never been in hospital, 68 years of age, never been in hospital, never been in for a stay overnight, I think. So a couple of weeks later, I get the call to go. So I went to Broad Green to the cardiothoracic. And I went into the reception, and the receptionist said, yes. I said, well, I've come, I'm in for a bypass. And she said, who's your doctor? I said, I don't know yet. And she said, no, that's it, that's his name, Dr. Who. I said, well, that's his name, Dr. Who. I thought, bloody hell, there we go. Anyway, when I met him, he's a wonderful man, he's Burmese, he's wonderful. I said to him, how do you spell your name, Doctor? And he said, capital O, small o. I said, bloody hell, if you weren't Dr. Who, you could be 007, couldn't you? Anyway, cut the story short, they'd done the operation, 6-hour operation, in intensive care for 36 hours or whatever, and then, you know, they encouraged you to walk up and down. And I've never, as I say, I've never been in hospital before, so it's all brand new to me. But after a couple of days, they actually have you walking up and down. So after about 3 days, I was walking 30 or 40 yards up the corridor. And I went to the end of the corridor on about the 3rd or 4th day. And it wasn't a ward, but like the curtains was round, the curtains was round, and there was a bed in there. And there's a bloke lying naked on this bed, but lying face down. And he had tubes coming out of here, tubes coming out of here, tubes coming into a catheter. He had a bloody mask on with tubes coming out of that. And there was a young trainee there standing next to him, and she had a drip stand, but there wasn't a drip on it. There was a big plastic funnel, you know, and a plastic tube coming down from the funnel. And I thought, where the bloody hell is she going to put that tube? And it became quite apparent because the next thing is she started putting grease on the end of it. And I couldn't believe it. The next thing, she stuck the tube up his arse. I went, oh, what the bloody hell is she doing? And the next thing, she got a cup of tea and poured it down the funnel. So the tea comes swooshing down and right up the fella's arse. Well, of course, he screamed. She went, oh my God. Is it too hot? He said, no, there's no sugar in it. I want you to imagine an old fella on the operating table, and it's like this with all these beautiful bright lights, and he's coming to and he's going, where am I? And a voice said, you're all right, Mr. Jones. You've been in a dreadful accident, but you're going to pull through. You're okay. Oh, what happened? The doctor said, you're Robin Reliant, run into the back of a steamroller, and it's concertina, Mr. Jones. He went, oh, no. He said, how old are you, Mr. Jones? He said, I'm 81 years of age. He said, well, you're a very lucky man. He said, it was quite a nasty smash. He said, but you are going to be okay. He said, is there any damage? He said, well, the Reliant with Robin's a write-off. He said, but the only damage to you is I'm afraid we've had to amputate your penis. He went, oh, no. He said, well, don't worry. He said, here at this hospital, he said, we specialise in transplants. He said, but unfortunately, he said, we can't do it on the National Health. It's got to be done private, he said, but for £1,000, he said, we can put you a little one on. Not a bad colour, but not much movement in it, but it's okay for peeing through. He said, but for £2,000, he said, we can give you one twice as big and twice as long, a much nicer colour. And it'll swing a bit from side to side. He said, but for £3,000, he said, we've got one here. It's hardly been used. He said, it's a cork. I belong to a Runcorn lad. He said, it's hardly been used. He said, it's a beaut. He said, it's perfect. He said, but that's £3,000. He said, which one would you like, Mr. Jones? He said, well, he said, the wife will be in tonight. He said, she looks after the money. He said, I'll discuss it with the wife when she comes in. He said, okay. The doctor said, I'll see you in the morning. So the next morning, the doctor's going on his ward round. There's Mr. Jones sitting up in bed. He said, good morning, Mr. Jones. He said, oh, good morning, doctor. He said, how are you feeling? He said, oh, I feel a lot better. He said, did your wife come in last night? He said, yes. He said, did you discuss the 1,000, 2,000 or the 3,000? He said, yes. He said, we discussed it at length. He said, so what are you having? He said, we're having a new fitted kitchen. I must say this, I think what doctors do now are fabulous. We had the pleasure of putting a big show on the Liverpool Empire for the Cardiothoracic Centre, and we made just under £19,000 in one night. It was a great night. Everyone came, all the big stars, all the big names, and all done it for petrol money. But while I was in, I have to go every month just to see my own doctor. While I was in there last month, I can't believe what I've seen. A woman come in like this, walking stick. Oh, bloody hell, I can't put up with this much longer, she said. Oh, God help me, oh. She was in the surgery about 5 minutes, and she come out like that. I was bloody amazed. I said, bloody hell, what's the doctor done for you? She said, he's given me a bigger walking stick. See you later. Thank you very, very much indeed. Good night and God bless. Thank you, Runcorn.